Okay, everybody. So I guess we will get started here. And as I said, we will be recording it as well. Uh, Everybody, thank you very much for joining us today for our Ignite Equity Management Zoom call. Here we are joined by Paul Gavin, Managing Director of Avecho biotech company, going for TGA approval, Phase III. And as Paul and I were just chatting before, this is certainly showtime. But before we get to you here, I just want to give everybody a little bit of an overview of the situation and things that we look for in investments. Sean and I, we are always looking for places where we can make a relatively small wager to have that enormous upside. So we really want to get that favorable. But also, in addition to that, though, we also want the probability of success to be far higher than maybe what the market is anticipating. And what that leads to is certainly a weighted probability that is very much in our favor. And certainly over the years, if you make enough of those types of investments, that certainly is the pathway to success. And along with this risk reward and the weighted probability, we also want a clear timing path. We want to understand milestones, where things should be at. Is there a clear pathway with real catalysts in place? Because otherwise you can get caught in a value trap. And that's why we are excited today and we've invested into Avecho, is because Avecho represents one of those opportunities, as Paul's going to discuss with the TGA upcoming trials, where there is that huge upside. We think that the market is significantly underestimating the probability of success. And from a timing point of view, it is a very short runway and a very clear path. So with that, Paul, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Yes, exactly. Paul, the purpose of today is to really get an update of the trials. Everything is upon us here right now. What is involved with those trials, the timing of them, and really maybe as well to answer some of those questions that the market is asking, especially around placebo effect, if that's okay with you.
No, that's fine. Just tell me where you'd like to start.
Absolutely. The trials themselves, Paul, tell us what is it, just give us an overview and especially around the timing of them.
Sure. So the trial that's about to kick off that we spent the year raising capital for is a pivotal phase 3 clinical trial. So we've already commenced a lot of the activities for that study. So we're manufacturing the material to be used in the study as we speak. It's being manufactured in the US, full GMP, submissible to the TGA and the FDA and all the rest. Locally, we're getting the sites up to speed and we're building all the IT infrastructure for the trial. And we hope to be recruiting patients probably end of January next year. So yeah, it's getting very, it'll be here before we know it. Christmas and then dosing. So yeah.
Exactly. And so the dosing will start in Q1?
Yes, the dosing will start in Q1. As I say, we're hoping to start recruitment in sort of late Jan. The recruitment, the trial is built to have quite an important feature, which is an interim analysis. So the interim analysis is an inbuilt cheat code. It allows us to, at a certain stage in the study, so we're picking about 200 patients. After 200 patients, the statisticians will look at the data that has been generated to date in a blinded fashion. And based upon that data, they'll say the effect size we're seeing here, we think you need another, whatever it is, 50, 100, 200 patients to absolutely maximize the chance of getting your statistical significance and success. And we're expecting at the moment that interim analysis to be September, October next year. Now, the variables that'll make that happen earlier or later is essentially two things. One is the ultimate recruitment rate. So the rate that the patients are brought onto the study. And the second is screen failures. So essentially, we have a very specific kind of patient that we're looking for. And this specific kind of patient will maximize the chance of success and reduce the placebo effect. And so, yeah, the ultimate rate that we can find these people will determine if we get there earlier or a bit later.
Right. And Paul, also adding to that, with insomnia as being what you're going for, certainly no lack of people out there that have suffer from it, including yours truly.
And me and my wife. And yeah, it's a very, very big indication. I mean, the stats are that it affects something like 40% of the Western world. You know, it's a really, and it's a growing. I mean, with the way the world is, it's an indication that's growing. People are constantly looking for mechanisms to aid with their sleep. If you don't get good sleep, it affects the rest of the quality of your life. So it's a key point to get right for health and well-being. And the great thing from our perspective as well is that sort of the existing over-the-counter medications available in Australia either don't work that well, so melatonin's not the world's greatest sleep aid, or in the context of something like Restovit, like I take Restovit every now and then I've got a chemical hangover that lasts the whole next day. It's an awful experience waking up in the morning.
Right. Hey, Paul, I want to ask if you can just go into a little bit of detail, and also bear in mind that people are not necessarily scientists, but why have other companies had some hiccups, if you will, with the trials, and what are the learnings from them that you can take for Avecho?
Sure. So maybe I'll go back one step for the audience. So we are a biotech company. So we've been doing drug development and clinical trials and building drug products for 20 years. Cannabinoids, CBD, and extracts of cannabis are not magic. You've got to treat them as you would any other pharmaceutical if you want to develop it along normal pharmaceutical pathways and get it registered with the TGA and the FDA. What differs us from our peers in the space who have failed in their trials is they are essentially medicinal cannabis companies. Their specialty is growing plants and extracting. They aren't drug development enterprises, and they have very little clinical development experience. Now, our trial, we took the entirety of 2022 really to build this phase 3 clinical trial. We used the FDA guidance documents for insomnia studies, the European guidance documents for insomnia studies. We pulled the last 2 approved insomnia drugs, their submission packages from the FDA, and we learned everything we could from about the do's and the don'ts. And very specifically, one of the things that's highlighted there is the placebo effect. So essentially, when you have a clinical trial where your outcome is based on patients reporting how they feel, it's very, very susceptible to a placebo effect, because we all are. We're all susceptible to a placebo effect. You can have a really sore tooth that is agony and then go to the dentist, and the dentist says you're fine, and the pain disappears immediately, because the mind is a very, very powerful thing. And so on studies like this, because we have to compare the drug versus a placebo, which is a pretend medicine, 100% you will get patients on pretend medicine that has no drug. It's essentially just a sugar tablet telling you how much better they're feeling or how much better they're sleeping. And if that group is improving, it can be difficult to monitor the effect of your drug. This is essentially where the first 2 medicinal cannabis companies failed at the start of the year. They saw everyone on their study improving for sleep. So the group that had CBD and the group that had placebo, they both improved just as well as each other. And so that's the real art in designing a clinical trial. It's controlling the variables so that you can see a difference between treatment and placebo. And so we've built a whole range of mechanisms in our trial to do that. I mean, the nice thing, which people have heard me talk on webinars, have heard me say before, in October last year, a journalist heard me sort of being a bit doom and gloom that a lot of these other companies were going to fail in their trials because they weren't accounting for the placebo effect. And fortunately, that was put in writing and enshrined October last year before anyone had failed. And then January, February, the first 2 fails happened, and they both said they failed because of the placebo effect. So we were forewarned about it, and we knew about it. So we've designed our way around it. We're very comfortable that the mechanisms that we put in place, which the last 3 approved insomnia drugs have done as well, will help us control it. Because the thing about these studies is if you record poor quality data, you'll get a poor quality outcome.
Right. So you definitely, I guess it's summing it up, there are 2 things. Number 1, there's certainly learnings that you've taken, but number 2, in your 20 plus years of developing trials, you certainly, I guess, know your way around. It's not your first rodeo, so to speak.
Yeah, I should give you one further answer to that, the learnings. So we haven't learned anything from the other trials, but the last result realistically has validated all our decisions. So the first 2 guys failed at the start of the year, and then essentially it was us and one other company, which was BOD, who were pursuing insomnia as an indication for this CBD product. Bod announced their big trial results, maybe time flies, maybe 8 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago. And essentially, they were using a CBD capsule for insomnia, and they failed their primary endpoint, as the same as the other two guys. Now, where their trial was interesting for us is that they failed their primary endpoint, so the trial didn't work. But whenever a trial doesn't work, you do your post hoc statistical analysis, and you look at all the data from various angles, and you see what value you can get out of it. And what they found was that they tried 2 doses, 50 milligrams of CBD and 100 milligrams of CBD. And they found that 50 milligrams of CBD was no different to placebo, but 100 milligrams appeared to be statistically better than placebo. So what that tells us 2 things. Tells us is that they'd kind of established a dose response. So the more CBD, the better for sleep. They were only going to 100 milligrams in their trial. We're going to 150 milligrams. So we've already got 33% more drug given to patients than they used.
Right.
And our product increases bioavailability. So essentially, patients in our study will get a much higher dose of CBD, and they've established that more matters. The second thing that they've established is they saw that result in a sort of after the fact statistical analysis. The reason they failed in their primary analysis is they didn't have enough patients. You need more patients for statistical power. And so they only dosed I think it was 208 patients. We're dosing like 540. So our interim analysis is as big as their entire trial. So if we take their result and we say, yes, CBD works for sleep, but you need a high dose, we have the higher dose. And we take away the fact that you need more patient numbers, we've got over double the patient numbers. They saw statistical significance at 200 in a post hoc analysis. We're doing like 540.
Right.
So we really feel that it's de-risk. It's validated every decision that we made. So we're just excited to get started.
Great. So everybody, just what Paul is saying here is exactly how we see it as well. And for those of you that don't know, Paul and I remember speaking before the bod, the results came out, and you called it as you saw it. You told us ahead of time. So well done to you for that. And it certainly shows that your experience in this matter definitely counts. Everybody, I want to open it up for questions, because this is really an opportunity to talk, to learn, to really just hear what is going on, and to hear directly from Paul. So I will open it up right now, and I'm getting questions already on my phone. If anyone knows, also you can use the chat bot there. Paul, the question is, interim analysis, is that a big milestone in your mind? Obviously it is, but maybe just go into a little bit more.
Yes, I mean, it is. I mean, where the interim analysis originally was planned for 2 things, all right? So first pass, a futility assessment. So a futility assessment is a statistical thing where you look at the data and go, you know what, despite our best efforts, CBD doesn't work for sleep. There's no effect here. Let's cancel the trial here and save many, many millions of dollars that we could put towards something else. But where it is of specific value to a study like this is that CBD is not currently approved anywhere in the world for sleep as a pharmaceutical. So this would be a world first. So consequently, there is an absence in the world of these big randomized placebo-controlled insomnia studies with CBD that we can use to help design ours. And the major point of designing a trial is the powering. And the powering essentially means, how many people do I need to dose to get statistical significance? So this interim analysis, it really tells us exactly how many patients we need to remain. And in the context, that was its initial intent. Where now it's got more interesting for us is licensing. So in Australia, there are a whole suite of licensees desperate for a registered CBD product. And we had offers before the phase 3, but the offers were not commensurate with what you would expect for this kind of product. So we said, we'll pay for the phase 3 ourselves, and then we'll have a bidding war at the end of phase 3. Once the first 2 guys failed, the discussions that we had seemed to be sliding forward, that maybe pharma would like to commit around the interim analysis point. Because the interim analysis it's not a guarantee that the trial's working, but it'll certainly say there's an effect here to be seen. And that would be the point where potentially pharma would say, we don't want to miss out on this, and jump in. With BOD failing, and now we're the only ones left, some of those discussions may happen even a bit further. But interim analysis, huge point, because especially for the market, if the interim analysis passes, the market will assume the trial's working. There's not too many successful phase 3 trial companies valued at $10 million.
Got it. Okay.
Or just on that,
Yep.
the current market cap of $10 million. Why do you think the market's getting it so wrong? Why, in your eyes, why should it be valued a lot higher?
Well, I mean, I guess it is where it is because of a couple of factors. So, I mean, for those that haven't followed our journey over a longer period, we had a much larger market cap many years ago. We lost a very big legal case that destroyed the share price at the end of 2018-19, and we've been sort of building it back up from there. Obviously the global markets have been really hard in the last year and a half, especially last year. And in building the phase 3 trial, I just didn't have as regularly the news last year to help kind of put the finger in the dam of the price ticking down. But now we are where we are, and a bunch of the other pot stocks have failed. My job is really to differentiate ourselves from these other people that have failed, and really prove the bona fides of we're on a pharmaceutical play, not medicinal cannabis. To your point, Sean, I think a lot of people are discounting cannabis. And it's really my job to differentiate us from cannabis and what all the other medicinal cannabis companies are doing. I mean, now that we've got the razor away and we're going to make big impact in the phase 3 trial, I mean, the train's moving. And if the phase 3 looks half decent, everyone will regret that they didn't come in now.
With your interim, I mean, you are fully funded to interim trial results. Has that been delayed a bit? Because I thought that was going to be June.
So the interim analysis. So the way the interim analysis is now September, October, and again, it could be a bit earlier, it could be a bit later.
Yep.
Is the capital raise. So essentially, with the capital raise that we did, as you know, we set out in April to raise 11 to fund the whole thing. In total, we got 8. So essentially what we did is we carved off 1 or 2 of the nice to haves from the study rather than must haves. And one of the things that we carved off is a couple of clinical trial sites. Initially, we were planning on running 10 clinical trial sites in parallel, or up to 10, which obviously maximizes the number of patients you get through the door at any one time. At the moment, with the money that we got, we can afford 5. So it's 5 clinical trial sites. So if we do end up getting a little bit of extra, if pharma decides to step in early and give us a bit of cash, we'll reopen all 5 sites and it'll move much quicker.
Got
it.
Okay. Phil Woodroth, did you want to ask a question?
Greg, you've probably got to promote him to panelist.
Let me see. Hang on. I'll just give it a second.
Just in the meantime, we've got a question on the chat here. I'm not sure, it's from a bit off topic today. However, can you give any update for your other recreational product uses, contacts that are in the pipeline, and other pharma interests that are happening? And then we'll go on to Philip.
Yeah, I can, sure. So, yes. So, I mean, for those of you that have been following us, I mean, we're investing quite heavily in making a product that stands up to kind of pharmaceutical rigor, but everything that we've done for the pharma space can be leveraged down into the unregistered medicinal cannabis space, and specifically in the US and Canada, the consumer recreational space. They obviously care less. about the medicinal benefits, but our technology that increases cannabis absorption will get people high quicker and high longer, which is obviously a big deal in the recreational space. So we built some gummies early in the year, optimized some THC gummies using our tech. They work really fast. They work really hard. We're focusing on what we could do with them on the medicinal side, but there's a lot of interest in the US and Canada. So I was in the US for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks ago, visiting a bunch of the larger recreational cannabis companies that we've been in discussions with. A bunch of them are trying to replicate our gummies in the US. Yeah, and if they work half as well as they did in Oz, we would definitely be expecting to get our technology into the hands of the recreational cannabis companies. I mean, a huge, monstrous industry that is, all the products are essentially commodities, and they're screaming out for some differentiation. So that's on the rec side. We've got these topical CBD and a topical CBG product that we intend to go into phase 2 clinical trials with it in Oz for osteoarthritis of the fingers and hands. We're in other discussions with our CBD. So our oral CBD capsule is being tested by the Lambert Initiative in 2 internal clinical trials at their end. And we're talking about a few other clinical trials. On the non-cannabinoid side, we continue to develop topical ibuprofen with Perrigo in the US, for US registration. The Arthur Group in the US are using our TPM to develop injectable oncology products. Yeah, and we're talking to a bunch of other guys about further non-cannabinoid product development programs as well. So, yeah, busy.
Got it. Philip, do you want to ask a question? Because I've got another one here too.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, it might be a really stupid question, but just interested to know if there haven't been other successful clinical trials showing products such as yours as successful. What factors have led you to be sort of reasonably confident, at least, that your product will be?
Sure. No, that's not a stupid question at all. The reason why there haven't been these clinical trials to prove what the stuff works for is essentially because of what's happened around the world with the consumer and recreational markets. So in the US, the minute adult use, it's still federally illegal in the US. So you can't even do easily clinical trials or drug development with the cannabinoids in America at the moment. Like if you pay for cannabis in the US with a credit card, you've committed a federal crime, even if it's legal in a specific state. It's crazy. And so the larger pharma companies have been a bit hesitant to do US drug development. What's happened in Australia, where you've seen a bunch of these trials kick off, is our TGA. So Australia only has medicinal cannabis. So you can only get it under prescription if you find a GP willing to prescribe it, because they're still not that common. And the TGA, our TGA hates medicinal cannabis. Essentially, when the TGA made it legal in 2016, they were thinking it was going to be a sort of smaller cottage industry. It'll be kind of unmet need. It would operate via a TGA loophole called the Special Access Scheme or the Authorized Prescriber Scheme. Those are intended to be for unapproved medicines where, you know, my kid's got some rare cancer. There's a drug in Germany approved. It's the only place in the world. I'll import it into Australia and use it as an unapproved medicine. The problem is cannabis drove its entire truck through that loophole and kept prescribing without doing any clinical development. So they didn't prove it works. They didn't prove it was safe. They didn't do all the manufacturing thing, which the TGA assumed that they would do. So the TGA's response to that, which again, I was sort of saying to Greg, it just fell into our hands, plays so hard to our strengths, was that the TGA said, they dangled a big carrot in front of everyone, which was, if you do the clinical trials and you get if you prove CBD is a pharmaceutical, in Australia, you can get it registered as an over-the-counter medicine. So an over-the-counter medicine is one of those things that you go into any of the chemists in the country and you talk to the pharmacist at the back, and it's behind the counter. And so it's a huge commercial opportunity because you have direct access to the entire Australian population. And they don't need a prescription, and they don't need to see a GP. So that move incentivized all these trials to happen in Australia. And the thing about OTC is it has to be an indication that is appropriate for an over-the-counter medicine. So it can't be cancer, because cancer needs medical oversight, irrespective of the drug. So it has to be something that people can self-diagnose. It's not so serious that you need a GP. So it's sleep, anxiety, pain, these kind of things. And so what the TGA did caused 5 or 6 of us to jump into world first phase 3 clinical trials, because we're all chasing this carrot. And the flow on from that was Big Pharma has made a lot of their Asia Pac divisions the head scouts of their cannabis units, because they're all watching what happens in Australia, because more phase 3 trials are happening here now for this opportunity than other places of the world. So long-winded answer, but to your question, although there are no pharmaceutically approved CBD products for sleep, sleep remains one of the most prevalent indications that CBD is prescribed for in all the global medicinal cannabis schemes, as well as the consumer side in the US. So there's millions and millions of people that use it for sleep. They just haven't been captured in a proper randomized placebo-controlled clinical trial.
Okay, thanks very much. Is it possible to squeeze in another question, maybe a shorter one?
Of course.
Sure.
Okay. Your turbo booster, is it TPM? Is it the?
Yep.
It obviously has potential benefits to increase the dose, but does it also complicate the factor of if you're specifying a certain dosage on a product and you put this on, that it's sort of, you're effectively maybe getting a higher dosage of the product? Is that likely to complicate any approvals of the product?
No, I mean, it's definitely something that we have to explain and account for, and we've had to do that as part of our ethics submissions as well. I mean, the good thing now is that we've done our human phase 1 PK trials, so we've characterized the drug absorption, so that's all clear and understandable. Where it's not an issue from our perspective, where it's a huge advantage because everyone else playing with 150 milligrams, it just acts like 150 milligrams. Whereas our 150 milligrams may be, equivalent to someone else's 300, 400, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing about this TGA OTC opportunity is the TGA specified that in order to qualify for this, you could only use a maximum dose of 150 milligrams per day of CBD, which is why that's the dose that we've chosen. And they've chosen that dose because of the safety margin that represents compared to another product. So I should say, when we're talking about the commercial opportunity, in the world right now, there is only one pharmaceutically approved CBD product. It's called Epidiolex. It was developed by GW Pharma. It's for a rare childhood epilepsy indication, so it's rarely prescribed. Despite being rarely prescribed, the company was acquired for $7.2 billion US to get this product. Now, the good thing about Epidiolex is that they did clinical trials looking at safety, going up to 6 grams of CBD per day.
Okay.
So when
Much more.
That's a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. When we talk about 150 milligrams, even if we maximize the absorption of all of it, we'll essentially be able to go to the TGA and say, it's a bit less than 6 grams.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, I'm getting a question following on, Philip, with one of your questions, which is that are the big pharma companies looking at your trials?
Yes, they are. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of big pharma companies that have publicly put their flag in the sand with cannabinoids. I mean, we've described them, most of them are cannabinoid curious, the big pharma companies. And I've flippantly said, but it's true, a bunch of them have set up their little secret bunkers in Europe. They all seem to be in Europe, where they are evaluating the cannabis opportunities and really trying to ascertain whether cannabinoids moving forward will be true pharmaceuticals that are registerable, or whether they'll be, just be wellness and recreational products in the future. But Dr. Reddy's put their flag in the sand, so they acquired Nimbus in Germany. Halion, which is the OTC division of GSK, put their flag in the sand when they did the deal with Can. Can failed, so Halion needs a new product. Teva made some moves that were public in the cannabinoid space, and there's obviously Jazz that acquired GW Pharma for 7.2 billion. They're the ones that have done it out in the open, and there's a bunch beneath them that are all looking at it in secret. So we're talking to a bunch of them. So yeah, everyone would be very, very interested in a registered CBD product, even if to start it was just Australia. We've got to say, like, as a biotech, you never focus a drug development program on Australia. And this is not to say this is an Australian focus, but an Australian registration is a huge step on the way to getting to the US and the others, because essentially if we have success here, and it's the licensing discussion for the overseas market is a registered pharmaceutical product. You add zeros on the end to that compared to, a preclinical or a clinical product or something that still has risk attached. So, this Australian opportunity is unique. And everyone's watching it with great interest.
So are Sean and I can assure you of that.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, it's lapping up on a half hour. Sean, do you have any comments also before we call it a wrap?
Get it done, Paul.
What, sorry? Get it done.
Get it done. Looking forward to getting this started and hopefully some success.
Yeah. No, we're keen to get started as well. It's been a long time coming. But yeah, we all understand the value a phase 3 trial brings, especially when you're starting off from a kind of low point on a market cap size where we are. So if it looks half decent, it'll be huge.
Well, I think you've got the perfect face there for the front of Time magazine. I think it could look really good. So hopefully one day you'll be on the front there.
That'd be great.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, just shoot them our way here. Paul is fantastic about responding. Seriously, anything at all. Again, thank you. We are thrilled to be supporting this situation.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Very interesting.
Bye-bye.